Hello friends and welcome to the tutorial. Today we are going to be drawing an octopus using the Picasso Tab and Sketchbook Pro. Let's begin. I first created a new layer, picked a dark blue colour and the pencil. You can sketch in whatever colour you like. I like to pick a different colour each time I begin a new sketch. I am going to start with drawing the top of the octopus's body, which is shaped like an oval or an egg that's lying slightly on its side. I then drew in two straight lines coming down on the left side and a half circle on the other side at the base of the lopsided oval. I moved on to add in the eyes at the base of the little straight lines on the left hand side of the body. The drawing will look a little strange at this point, but it will come together as you begin to add in the tentacles or legs. Speaking of legs, I next added in the first one, drawing a line coming down from the outer eye and curving it up and round to a point, and then drawing the other side coming down and then back up again. You will want to make the legs wider at the base where they join the body, and then draw them getting smaller as they taper towards the pointed ends. I drew in 3 legs in the foreground, a couple more behind that, and then we'll imagine that the rest of his legs are behind the body and are not visible from the front. I then used the transform tool to make the entire octopus sketch a little bit smaller and to place him in the center of the page. This is a really useful tool if you need to resize or move your sketch around. Now that the main outline was completed, I could go in and add in details such as the lower lids and the pupils in the eyes, and I also added in eyebrows, one on his eye and one floating, just to give him some expression. Then I added lots of little ovals into his body and legs. I scattered these across, varying the size and the angle of each shape as I went. I also added in the suction cups or suckers onto the foreground legs. Too many of these little suction cups would clutter up the design, so I only added a few and I drew them in little clumps on a couple of the legs. Once I was happy with the octopus, I moved on to adding a few things into the background, starting with drawing a ground line behind him and adding a seaweed plant right in the foreground on the left hand side. I added some rocks and detail lines into the seabed and another coral type plant to the right hand side of the page, as well as 2 more pieces of seaweed behind that. I then drew in 2 little fish into the background and finished with some bubbles. You can add further details such as more fish, coral or seaweed if you have areas of your background that feel empty. The sketch was now ready to outline. To do so, I created a new layer, picked a dark brown colour and the fountain pen. I like to lock the sketch layer down as I work so I don't accidentally draw in the wrong layer. Then I simply traced the entire drawing with the predictive stroke tool turned on so that all of my lines would come out smooth. After the lines were traced, I went back around the main lines of the octopus once more to thicken them up. This will help him to stand out from the background. Now onto the colouring. I duplicated the outline layers and then worked in the lower of those 2 layers. I used the paint bucket to fill in all the main areas and the fountain pen to colour in any areas that were not enclosed spaces, such as the background seaweed, for example. After all the main colours were set, I created another layer and added in shadow and highlight lines. I used the colour picker to pick the colour of the section that I wanted to work in, and then I used the colour chart to choose a matching lighter shade for the highlights and then a matching darker shade for the shadows. I drew in shadow lines along the base of the legs and the body, and highlights on the top of the body and the legs. This is a simple style of shading, but it does add effective details to the drawing. I used the same process for the background as well. To finish up, I am going to create a new layer and then move that layer behind all the others. On this background layer, I placed a light blue square, keeping a white border all the way round. This just adds a little extra interest into the background layout. I then filled in the bubbles and added a few more using the circle shape tool. The final step was to add a white outline between the octopus and the blue background. And that completes the drawing. I hope you enjoyed drawing the octopus today. Thank you for watching.